Howdy, folks. Welcome once again to Nerd Week Live here on YouTube. And I just muted myself because I can see it coming up there next to the chat. And we don't need that. My voice is fine once around. We don't need the echo. Addison, welcome. That was nice and quick. Popped right in there. Welcome to the chat. So I'm flying solo, folks, as you can see, and we got people who are out at movie reviews. We got people that are working late at their day jobs. We got people that are doing practicing for upcoming shows. So they're all having fun. Waifu Pennywise, welcome back. Thanks for coming back 2 weeks in a row. We like that. So we do have a handful of topics, but because it's just me, we're probably going to get through them pretty quickly. We'll probably be done within a half an hour or so. So please, if you got any questions, jump into the chat. Throw stuff at me, ideally related to the stuff we're talking about, but, it's just me, so it can be a little bit looser than we might otherwise be. Let's see, there's no other introductions to give, so I will introduce myself again, in case you don't know who I am, in case you haven't been on this channel before, or on this particular live stream. I'm Rodney Brown. I'm the editor-in-chief of Nerd Caliber. I am first-person shooter as a cosplay photographer on Facebook, and I am Burley_Adopter as a tech journalist on Twitter. The Twitters. So we're going to jump right into it. First thing is an update for the Kyoto animation news. I can't imagine you guys haven't heard about this. It's been a couple of weeks now, but the long and short of it is that a disturbed individual attacked one of Kyoto Animation's studios in Japan with gasoline and set the place on fire. Injured himself in the process, badly enough that he cannot be interviewed by the police still. And many people died. The news. The two things of news. One is that the death count has sadly gone up to 35. Yet another person who was in the hospital has succumbed to their wounds. And that is absolutely horrible. There is one little bit of good news, and that is that Kyoto Animation, as of actually the day after we did last week's show, put out the information for if you wanted to donate to their recovery or to help out any of the families of the victims themselves. They put their information out, how you can directly transfer money into their Japanese bank account. I'm not going to go through that here because, well, it's really complicated. But if you go to Crunchyroll, crunchyroll.com, and just do a search in their news under Kyoto Animation, an article will come up that'll have all that information. So you can do it that way. You can also go to the GoFundMe that Sentai Filmworks set up and donate there. And Sentai Filmworks will be delivering that well over $2 million that they've raised in just 2 weeks to the people at Kyoto Animation. The head of Kyoto Animation has said that they will be completely transparent about what they do with any of the funds raised. And right now their plan is to have those funds go to even did they make Dragon Maid? Yes, Kyoto Animation did make Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid, and it's one of the many fantastic pieces of entertainment they made. Anyway, I did this last week a little bit, and I don't want to go into how fantastic this company is, but it is. GoGo mentioned this a little, and it's worth repeating. They hired diversity. They had probably the highest percentage of female employees of any animation studio, including top people. The director of Violet Evergarden was a young woman. It was the first thing she had ever directed, and she killed it. I mean, knocked it out of the park. So yeah, and they also are known for treating their people properly within the industry. Animation, like any creative, whether it's video games or what have you, they have a tendency to get into crunch time and work people to the bone and work them crazy hours. There's a couple of actually excellent animes out there about that. Shirobako is one of them. about working in the animation industry and how tough it is. Kyoto Animation had the reputation of taking care of its people, that it did not work them to death, it paid them good wages, and so once again, it's an extra tragedy that this happened. The reason I brought that image up, that was from the anime Sound Euphonium, and the very first season. And one of the very little bits of information that has come out about the person who did the attacks was that just prior to the attacks, he went to a number of the locations that are in real world from this anime, and that's one of them that's very popular. It's this mountain park overlook that overlooks the city below. And he went to that and apparently a few others from Sound Euphonium. Since there's a rumor out there that he was claiming that Kyoto Animation plagiarized a novel that he supposedly wrote, there's no evidence that he has written anything ever. And he went to all of these Sound Euphonium locations. It sounds like he thought in his head that Sound Euphonium was somehow his property. Again, we don't know that. They haven't had a chance to interview him. This is information that's just sort of come out for people who apparently heard things he was yelling as he was setting the fire and so on. Anyway, if you can help out the people at Kyoto Animation, go to that GoFundMe, or go to Crunchyroll and look up the direct bank account information. I can't believe they did that. That bank account information must be really handled differently in Japan than it is here in the United States. Anyway, so again, very, very sad that this happened, and I really hope that everybody helps out, and if you can, no judgment if you can't. I mean, there are plenty of people who don't have 2 nickels to rub together to give to somebody in Japan, and that's fine. Moving on to our next bit of news, and that image that just popped up right there, folks, is from the BBC television series adaptation of the book series Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Written, of course, by Douglas Adams, if you're at all a fan of the Hitchhikers. The news is that Hulu is doing a new series adaptation. Showrunner is Carlton Cuse, who worked on Lost, sadly the latter seasons of Lost, but also wrote the wonderful Amazon series Tom Clancy's Jack Ryan, and apparently is working on the adaptation of Lock and Key that is from Joe Hill. Wonderful comic series from Joe Hill, Stephen King's son. And the feature writer is Jason Fuchs, who wrote Wonder Woman. So if you've never, Pennywise, if you've never seen Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, it's kind of hard to explain. Maybe you've seen the movie. Let me go to the next image. So there was a movie made a few years ago of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's a science fiction comedy series that follows the travels of Arthur Dent, who is the one in the bathrobe there, and the various people that he encounters as he goes through the galaxy with these aliens, including in the helmet, that's Zaphod Beeblebrox, the president or possibly lapsed president of the entire galaxy. He fled, so it's kind of unclear as to whether or not he still has the title. Ford Prefect in the white jacket, who is writing for the Hitchhiker's Guide, and that's the point of the story, is that he is a travel guide writer, except an alien, and it's an interstellar guide. And Trillian is Zooey Deschanel plays Trillian, sort of this woman that Arthur has a very strong crush on, and who gets wrapped up in all of these travels. It's very, very funny. Even the original, as horrible as the special effects, Zaphod has 2 heads, so as horrible as the special effects of Zaphod is in that original BBC series, it was still really funny, really good. Luminous, it would be tough. So Luminous says, I hope it's as good as Briscoe County Jr., in fact. Um, Carlton Cuse did Briscoe County Jr. Thank you for pointing that out, Luminous. I did not know that, and so that elevates his star in my view quite a bit. Wow, I loved that series. I'm not going to go into that at all, folks. Look up Briscoe County Jr. if you want to see one of the most innovative, funny television series of the past 2 or 3 decades. Uh, it's almost hard to steampunky, science fictiony western. It's just straight up western, um, starring Bruce Campbell. Now, what more do you want? Um, anyway, Hulu's doing this. I'd like to think it's going to be really good and really funny. Every adaptation that I've seen or heard, because the first thing I did, the BBC Radio did a radio serial that was absolutely just side-splittingly funny. Vera, welcome to the show. Vera McLaren is your name, in fact. I guess that's what you're saying. So we get it. So I'm hoping this is going to be funny. I honestly don't know what new can be brought to the table. But then again, that could be the big surprise. Let's hope they do bring something new and funny. Yeah, not like the Sonic movie. Waifu Pennywise, not like the Sonic movie. Please, if there is a God. Another bit of interesting news. We got the first teaser for the Runaways season 3. There's they confirmed there was definitely going to be a season 3 a few weeks ago, actually a couple of months ago. But we got the first teaser look at season 3, and we got a date, December 13th. Wafa Al-Sadi, welcome to the show. Yeah, so December 13th is coming back with all of the fantastic cast, these young people who are doing just an absolutely stellar job interpreting the wonderful comic Runaways on Hulu. Apparently, because of the fact that Disney bought out almost all of Hulu, and so it is now a completely Disney property. We don't know exactly how, but they are saying that it will be more closely connected to the MCU. It's always been sort of a standalone story, even though it's been labeled as Marvel's The Runaways in all of its marketing material. That's the title of the show. But it's not really had any connection whatsoever to the MCU, and apparently that's going to change. Upcoming in season 3, it's going to be, Pennywise. Hulu was for the longest time, or had for the longest time, Disney as a large minority stakeholder. And then as part of the Fox deal, Fox had another fairly large chunk. They got that, so now Hulu is essentially majority owned by Disney, and significantly majority owned. It's not up to 90%, but it's more than 75%, as I recall. So it's pretty much, it's a Disney property. And I think you're going to see an awful lot of interaction between the stuff that's going on Disney Plus, Disney's new streaming network, and Hulu. Like, it'll premiere on Disney Plus, and the next week it'll probably be on Hulu. Or once the whole season is run on Disney Plus, before the next season comes out, you'll get the whole season on Hulu, or something like that. Pennywise would rather watch King of the Hill. They're not even remotely related in content or tone, but King of the Hill is hilarious. I'll give you that. Continuing with the Marvel news, this is one of the things we didn't get to coming out of San Diego Comic-Con, because I don't think this was announced at the Marvel Hall H panel. That image is, if you're a Marvel Comics fan, you'd recognize that's the Watcher, standing up there on the moon. The Watcher. I'm not really sure where the Watchers stand now, after a miniseries from a few years ago in which he was kind of killed, or at least this Watcher was. I don't know if they've sent another Watcher. Anyway, the Watcher is going to be the glue that holds together the What If series that's coming up on Disney Plus, which is going to be an animated series where they do what if stories. which was a very popular run through an awful lot of the last 40 years of Marvel Comics, where they would do these one-offs. What if, well, one of them was, what if Spider-Man was fat? I don't think they're going to play with that one. But what if, what if somebody else had been given Johnny Storm's powers, or I think one of the ones they did was what if, and they used this a little bit in the Fantastic Four movies. What if all of the Fantastic Four's powers, everybody had been given somebody else's powers within the Fantastic Four when it happened? Things like that. The news is that the wonderful Jeffrey Wright, who just popped up on your screen, is going to be doing the Watcher voiceover. So he's going to be the glue, as I said, that sort of ties in all of these what-if stories. What if Iron Man had really bad gas when he fought the Mandarin? The actual Mandarin, Anthony, or the fake Mandarin, Trevor? Because if it was Trevor, I think Trevor would just give it right back to him. Because I'm pretty sure with all the drugs and beer Trevor consumed, he probably had some pretty bad gas. But these are the kind of what-if stories that hopefully we can expect much better what-if stories in that series than what Anthony just suggested. But maybe. What if the Fantastic car was actually the car in Dude, Where's My Car? It was real high quality content like that. Anyway, Jeffrey Wright going to be the voice of the Watcher. I think that's awesome. Jeffrey Wright's an amazing actor. Bernard from Westworld, if you've watched Westworld, and so many other things. Felix Leitner in the Daniel Craig entire run of James Bond. Felix Leitner, his CIA contact. What if Squirrel Girl was a mutant? She is a mutant, or is she? I'm not really sure where Squirrel Girl's powers come from. Was she bitten by a radioactive squirrel or something like that? I think that's the joke, is that she's kind of like Spider-Man. But that would be a good one. What if Squirrel Girl was a mutant? Yeah, so all sorts of possibilities for the what-if stories. They can either mind the ones that they've already had. They can come up with new ones, which I'm hoping that they're going to do. So considering it's tying into the MCU, I think it's probably going to be a lot more new content that looks at what if things within the MCU are different, as opposed to just straight up what if from the comic books. Because it would really suck if they introduced a what if something about the Fantastic Four, or what if something about the X-Men, before they actually introduced the X-Men or the Fantastic Four into the MCU. So, let's hope that they stick to the MCU content. All right, next topic is, and I'm so glad it's taken way too long for this to happen, the sequel to Zombieland. We finally get the first trailer, Zombieland Double Tap, perfect name. And if you haven't seen the trailer, go watch it. It's hilarious. Particularly at the end, I laughed out loud. There was some wonderful lull moments, and even the opening. Nothing giving it away. It's an incredibly satirical opening where it shows all of them walking toward the camera through like high grass somewhere, and it's like they were about to announce some upcoming Shakespeare adaptation. It's like two-time Academy Award nominee Woody Harrelson, two-time Academy Award nominee Jesse Eisenberg, two-time Academy Award winner Emma Stone. They go through, and then it's Zombieland Double Tap. It's just hilarious. Pennywise, if you haven't seen the original Zombieland, I'm sure it's on something now where you can see it for free or for super cheap. So I would recommend going to see it. It is a post-apocalypse zombie movie that is a comedy. It's a horror comedy. It's hilarious. Double Tap refers to Jesse Eisenberg's character does basically the voiceover, and he has these set of rules on how to survive the zombie apocalypse. And one of the biggest ones is always do the double tap. You got to make sure they're dead. So if you're not running for your life, make sure you put 2 bullets in the head. Yeah, that's so. You can say that, Pennywise. I'm not really sure how old you are, but it was 10 years ago. So, let's assume you're, 20, that you could have seen it when you're 10. 10 years ago was, well, not quite when I bought this shirt, but, you know, 10 years ago was not that long ago for me, and people like me. People like me being old people, in case you didn't get that clearly. Um, 13, I don't think you would have seen this when you were 3, Pennywise. Um, And if you've been watching our show regularly and you caught any curse words from any of us, my apologies. Um, and I know that's a very old-fashioned way of looking at things, but I'm an old guy. Um, so yeah, I'm pretty sure you didn't see this when you were 3. Or God, I hope you didn't see it when you were 3. I mean, it does have a lot of zombie killing and gore and violence and so on, and it's R-rated. So, you know, but you never know. It could have happened. Um, and actually, there's no saying that you would have had to have seen it when it first came out. Obviously, that's an assumption on my part. That's pretty stupid. Moving on, and so we've got one more piece of sad news here, and everybody's seen this. I know everybody's seen this, but just in case you haven't, of course, and this happened again right after our show last week. Rutger Hauer passed away. Um, so Rutger Hauer was one of the absolute stalwarts of nerd entertainment, going back to the very early 1980s. This is, of course, him as Roy Batty from the original Blade Runner, the movie that made his career and that didn't stop him from still going on to make like real stinker movies that were just so much fun, like real sci-fi, super nerdy flicks. Um, but he also made a whole bunch of quality. So the same year that he made Blade Runner, he made Flesh and Blood, Flesh Plus Blood, Paul Verhoeven movie. If you like historical fiction, go watch it. If you're 13 like Pennywise, don't go anywhere near it. It's a European-made film. It's violent and gory in ways that even modern movies don't necessarily get to. And it has one of the most long, uninterrupted rape scenes I've ever seen on film, and it's probably one of the most disturbing things you can watch. It is horrifyingly accurate to what life was in the high medieval period in Europe, when the plague was running around and killing everybody, and because of that, lawlessness was everywhere, and mercenaries were running around killing everybody. It's brutal, but it's an amazing movie. And he did an amazing job as Martin, a leader of a mercenary group. And then just a few years later, Ladyhawke. I got to see an advance, like real early advance. They hadn't finished all of the ADR, sound work, version of this, screening of this at a convention I went to in the mid 1980s. You hadn't heard Luminous? Yeah, it's so sad. But Ladyhawke, despite the horrible decision to use the electronica band Tangerine Dream to do an electronic medieval soundtrack, is still one of my favorite movies of all time. And then of course LoTR in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, just the best, not Dracula ever put on film. Um, it's hard to say what my favorite role is. Batman Begins. He played the most perfect corporate asshat that you could imagine. And that was just again, 10 years ago or so. If you go to IMDb, it's shocking. He's made movies that I've never even heard of, and I thought I knew just about everything he'd done. He just never stopped. He was making movies in Europe, and then boom, he'd come back over and make like Batman Begins or other things here in the States. He'd do little tiny roles in movies or in TV series, and then he's off leading another movie. It's fantastic. Um, I don't know that I could recommend that you watch the series Lex, but if you can find the 2 episodes he's in, um, yeah, I was gonna say you should watch it, but it would be so bizarrely nonsensical if you didn't watch everything that had gone into Lex up to that point. So, but a German, British, Canadian Showtime co-production from back in the '90s. Lex was something, and again, he had like this 2 episode villain arc. It's fantastic. Um, all right, so it's time to move on to our last topic here. And our last topic of the night is the 9 rings for the lords of men who, above all, love power. The 3 rings for the elves. The 7 rings for the dwarf lords. The story behind the scenes of what is going to be in and what is going to be the subject matter of the upcoming Amazon Lord of the Rings based series finally dropped, and it's a wonderful behind the scenes trailer that looks at all of the people that are involved. And they use this clip, so this is something that is really important. Jose says no. Okay, Jose, no to what? No 4. N4. All right. When you explain no to what, we can comment on it, Jose. So, they use this clip, and the clip is the opening of the Peter Jackson, New Line Cinema, Warner Brothers Fellowship of the Ring, and the opening of the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy movie, which is Galadriel doing her voiceover explaining how Sauron made the rings and then made the one ring to control them. It includes the clip in the middle of Galadriel as one of the 3 elves that is given the elvish rings of power, which means that this series, even though it's on Amazon, has some sort of connection to the movies. They wouldn't be given the rights to be able to use those clips in this behind the scenes things as an explainer for the fact that this is going to be set in the Second Age when Sauron made these rings, without having some sort of rights from Warner Brothers to do it. And I don't know anything. I have no idea what just got put in there, Jose, so it's pretty much garbage text. So, bye-bye. Anyway, well, so Pennywise asks, they're still making Lord of the Rings. This is a series, a TV series, or a streaming series that's going to be on Amazon. Amazon paid $250 million just for the rights to be able to do this. And it is not the series that follows the books. It's the series that explains what happened up to, I'm assuming that's where they're going to end it, up to the War of the Last Alliance of Men and Elves, which is what you see at the very beginning of the first movies, when Elrond and all of the elves and all the men are there fighting against Sauron, and Elendil, loses a sword and it's broken, and Isildur picks up the sword and cuts. Spoiler alert! If you haven't seen this movie, that's 12 years old, and at the very beginning of the entire series, and cuts off Sauron's ring, and the one ring drops, and Sauron loses his body, collapses. So this tells the story of Sauron making these rings, and the lead up to realizing that, because when he makes the rings, people think he's actually this really, amazing person. On the lead up to realizing that he's, horribly evil, and that he has made this one ring that's supposed to control all these people, and that they obviously have to go kill him. Or destroy him in some fashion, because he's actually an angel, and it's going to be really difficult to kill him. So they also released these beautiful, insanely high-resolution maps of their, precious, yes, Pennywise, shows how Sauron and why Sauron made precious. So these amazing maps that are insanely high resolution that shows the world, and One of the things that is really clear is the one map that shows everything that's on there has Numenor clearly displayed right here. Right here, you can't see. I don't have mouse tracing on here, so you can't see that. So Numenor is the island that's down there in the lower left of your screen. So this is no big spoiler. Well, it might kind of be a big spoiler, but if you know your Tolkien history at all, Numenor ain't around for very long. And one of the other things that caught my eye is that on that map, if you zoom into Middle Earth, so this is where Bree would be, the town where the hobbits meet up with Strider, with Aragorn. You can see that at Lake Nenwial is Annúminas. And Annúminas is the capital of Arnor, the kingdom that the people who survived Numenor founded. And it has Amon Sul, which is Weathertop in the Lord of the Rings movies, the ruined lookout fortress where they actually first fight and encounter the Ringwraiths. And of course Imladris, which is called Rivendell by the time the Third Age rolls around. Annúminas isn't founded until after Numenor sinks. Amon Sul isn't founded until about 8 to 10 years before the big battle. So realistically, if this all takes place during the time when everybody thinks Sauron is a cool dude to the end of the big battle, the last alliance of men and elves, then you're looking at about 200-ish years, 170-ish, over the course of the entire timeline. Now, that's not a big problem, because the Númenóreans are descended from elves, and so they have incredibly long lives. They're not immortal like the elves are, but they live for hundreds and hundreds of years. And even Aragorn, who is descended from Númenóreans, must have been at least 3,200 years prior to, or back, when the Númenóreans first came to Middle-earth. And so his bloodline has obviously been distilled, that's not the word I'm saying, has been thinned from Númenórean blood by regular blood of humans, or regular humans. He still lives for an incredibly long time, and if you didn't know this, he's 100 years old when the events of the books, The Lord of the Rings, takes place. Doesn't look it, of course, because he's descended from Númenóreans. So I'm not really sure how they're going to structure this whole thing if it does take place over close to 200 years. Now, I get that there are characters, in fact, all of the characters, except I guess some of the humans that they wind up bringing into Arnor and Gondor and the countries they found here in Middle-earth. You shall not pass. So I'm not going to get into that. I was going to do a Balrog thing about how the Balrogs are essentially very much like the the wizards and their angel. Anyway, go read the Silmarillion. You'll get all that stuff in there if you can get through it. But it must take place over the course of all of that time frame. However many seasons they're planning on stretching this thing out. Because the map shows something that disappears 120 years at least, Numenor, before the big battle at the end. And if they're going to do Sauron's story up to the actual, or building up to the creation of the rings, that's actually almost another 100 years, like 80 years prior to that. So this is going to be a interesting, weird time frame that they're stretching this thing out. Again, the people can be alive for that long, well more than that long. But that means there's going to be all sorts of bizarre time jumps, and it's going to be interesting to see how they handle that. like just when the armies are built up and they get to Imladris and they're pulling together all of the other elves and men kingdoms and armies to fight against Sauron in the first big battle. They're there for 7 years doing that. That's gonna be it's gonna be a weird time jump if at the end of the series they everybody shows up in what we know as Rivendell, and then time jump 7 years is like, okay, we've got tens of thousands of men and elves, let's go kill him. But anyway, I'm very curious as to how they're going to do this. I think they're going to do it because if you go watch the teaser, the people that are involved in this are absolutely fantastic, including the original designer, the costume designer for the Lord of the Rings movies, is going to be doing the designs for the Second Age people, and I think it's going to be fantastic. So, fingers crossed that they pull this off in an absolutely wonderful way. And that is our last topic. Go back real quickly to show the men there. There we go. Those greedy men in their rings, not a one of which is precious. That belonged to Sauron. But that's our show, folks. Thanks for joining in the chat. It was a lot of fun. Lots of cool questions and comments. And Luminous, thanks for pointing out. Now I'm trying to remember what it was that you pointed out that I had no idea about whatsoever. That Carlton Hughes did Briscoe County Jr. I got to go back and find that and watch that somehow. This coming weekend, I will be at Pop Cult Anime Con in Framingham, the Sheraton Hotel there in Framingham, and both Saturday and Sunday, taking pictures, having a good time. It's a fun little con. If you like anime cons, you don't like huge crowds, but you like really fun interactive stuff, go to Pop Cult. It's inexpensive. It's a lot of fun, and it's a really cool hotel. Right now, I think, or at least certainly within the next few days, Manny will be out at Gen Con. I'm not sure exactly what kind of content he's going to be getting out of there, but I would expect eventually down the road board game reviews, probably some sort of video coming out of there, interviews and so on. Luminous recommends Pop Cult Anime as well. Hopefully I'll see you there. And then we go to Terrificon the next weekend after that, down in Mohegan Sun. Terrificon is a really comic-heavy focus sort of pop culture Comic-Con. They get fantastic creators, and if you've really got the comic bug, that would be a good one to go to. We'll be there. We'll be getting pictures and video. Anthony, I will see you at Pop Cult on Saturday, and then after that, Fan Expo Boston or Boston Comic Con over there at the Boston Convention and Exhibition Center. We will be helping them out doing their red carpet photos. So that gives us a booth, and we will have a big old booth right next to the cosplay contest sign up and judging. So JMS from J. Michael Straczynski. Luminous, if you know how to pronounce his name, throw that at me. Anyway, fantastic writer. Comic books, novels, Babylon 5, Sense8, really sharp guy. Glad that he'll be here. That'll be cool. Luminous pointed out that J. Michael Straczynski will be at Terrificon. So anyway, Fan Expo Boston will have a booth. Big old setup right there next to the cosplay contest registration, which will be fairly close, as it usually is every year, to the guest cosplayers lineup. So come by, get your photos, say hi, and let's see. After that, I think it's Dragon Con for a bunch of people. Granite State Comic Con's coming up in mid-September. We'll have Adam Etheridge that same weekend at Colossal Con East, or let's say at the Kalahari Resort. I don't think he'll actually be doing Colossal Con East events, but He will certainly be at the resort taking photos for us. Let's see, what else? Yeah, so that leads us up to mid-September before we start getting into New York Comic Con, which is going to be insane. We're getting into the fall craziness here, folks. Um, it's going to be more likely that we have a con on any given weekend than we don't have a con on any given weekend. In fact, if we get one weekend off a month on any given month for the next 3 months, it's going to be pretty surprising. So, again, thank you all for joining us. Yes, Luminous, counting down to New York Comic Con. And we will see you next week. Next week, I will be house sitting for relatives, so I will be broadcasting from a laptop. There may be cats jumping all over the place. We'll see how that goes. Good luck to me next week. But thank you all again for joining, and I will see you next week. Bye-bye, and have a good evening.